Alright, welcome to the second part. In this part, we're going to be adding the CSS to make this look a lot better. Alright, so we have our style CSS created. Let's start with the body. Okay, we're just going to do a font family of Arial. The color of the text is going to be a really dark gray. We're going to set the body margin to 0 and the padding to 0. Okay, so let's start with some core styles for the unordered list. I want to just take off the margin and the padding. Okay, let's do the links, or the A tags. We're going to give them a color of light blue, which is going to be 009 ACD. And we're going to set text decoration to none. Okay, we also want a hover color. Hover color will just be the dark gray. Okay, next is going to be the container. That's going to bring everything to the middle. We're going to set a width of 960. And be sure to set the margin to auto. And we're going to set the overflow to auto. Okay, now for the header. Give it a background of light gray. And let's set the padding of the header to 10 pixels. And we'll set a border bottom of 3 pixels solid. And it's going to be that same light blue color. Okay, now for the H1. So we're going to say header H1. And that's going to have a margin and padding of 0. And what else? Let's say color will be that light blue, and we want to float it to the left. And then we also want that H1 to be a link. I don't think I made it a link. Let's see. No, I didn't. So I'm just going to wrap this in an A tag. And actually, you know what? We want the H1 to be on the outside. All right. So we'll say header H1A. And it's going to have a color of light blue. And we also want the text decoration to be none. Alright. Now, another thing I want to do is I want to have kind of a slogan or a tagline, because WordPress by default has an option for that. So I'm going to go right inside of the H1, and I'm going to put this in a small tag. And we'll just say another WordPress theme. Okay, then we'll style that. We'll say header small. We're going to give it a color of dark gray. And let's give it margin left. Let's just give it a 1 pixel margin. And I'm going to set the font size to 13. Okay, so now for the right side of the header, we're going to say header H right, and we're just going to float that to the right. Okay, now it has an input, so we're going to style the input. Oops, what the heck was that? So H right input. Let's just make sure it's only for the text inputs. So we'll say type equals text. And we're going to set a width of 250. We're going to set a padding of 5 and a margin top of 5. Okay, and that should do it for the header. Let's go ahead and save it and take a look. Okay, so that's our header. Next is the navigation. Alright, so let's say nav.nav. Give it a height. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want... Let's see. I want to have the main nav div have stuff like the height, the background color, customizations like that. But I do want to have just a regular nav class to do the floats, you know, so our footer menu can have our list item floats and stuff like that. All right, so I'm not going to put anything for that yet. I do want to do the LIs of the nav, and let me just make sure we actually have that. Okay, we have nav class and main nav. So for this, we're going to float these list items to the left. And we want to display inline and set a padding on the right of 15 pixels. Okay, then we'll say nav.nava, and just want to make sure the text decoration is set to none. Alright, so now let's do the main nav. Okay, so we're going to say height 45. Overflow is going to be hidden. We're going to do a background of dark gray. Color of the text is going to be white. And let's say padding top will be 7 pixels. Alright, so now we want to do the main nav LIs. Okay, so we're going to say height 40 pixels, and then line height also 40 pixels. Now we'll do the A tag. Color needs to be white. Text decoration none. And we'll set padding to 8 pixels. Alright, so now we need the hover state. So nav.main nav hover. And the hover color is going to be that light blue. Alright, so let's save that. And there's our navigation. Okay. Now this whole area here is going to have, it has a class of content. I just want to push it down a little bit. And I also want to set the line height of all the text. So we'll say .content. And let's set margin top. I'll set that to 30 pixels. Line height will be 1.5 em. Alright. Now I didn't include a sidebar, did I? Yeah, I didn't do the sidebar, so we need to do that. Let's go back into the index.html. And this div right here is going to be the main area. So we want to go right underneath that ending div. And we want to just put where we want our sidebar. So this will be div class. And let's give this a class of side. Alright. And we're also going to have a div inside of that called block. Each element in the sidebar should have a class of block. Alright, and then we'll just put an H3. We'll say sidebar head. And then we'll just put a paragraph. I'm just going to grab some text. Alright, and then under that we'll have a button, or a link that is formatted like a button. Okay, so now our sidebar is down here. So what we want to do is we want to say .main. We're going to float that to the left. And we're going to give it a width of 65%. Alright, and then the side is going to have a width of 30%, and that's going to float to the right. Okay, now for the block style, we're going to set a border of light gray. We'll say 1 pixel solid. Okay, we want some padding, 5, 15, 25, 15. Okay, we'll set the background to a really light gray and set overflow to hidden. Okay, now for the H3 in the block, we'll set border bottom, and that's going to be light gray, solid 1 pixel. And I want to set a padding on the bottom of 10 pixel. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so now we have our main area here and the sidebar. Now let's do the article. So we'll say it's actually an article tag with the class of post. And we're going to add a border bottom to those. And let's do a margin bottom. And also padding bottom. Okay, we also want to style this meta area right here. I want to give it a blue background. So we'll say article dot post dot meta. We'll give it a padding of 7 pixels. Okay, and also the button class, I'm going to just copy this. Okay, except we want to change the padding to 10, 15. Alright, and let's also display it as an inline block. Alright, so if we take a look, okay, that looks pretty good. Last thing is the footer. Alright, so down here we're going to say footer, and we gave it a class. I think it was main footer. Let me just check. Yep. Alright, so here we want to set a margin on the top. I want to align everything to the center. Give it a dark gray background. Color needs to be white. We'll give it a height of 60 pixels. Padding top, 10 pixels, and overflow will be auto. Alright, now we have the left and right side of the footer, so let's say footer dot F left. That's just going to have a left float. Okay, then we have the right side, which will have a right float. Alright, so now we have the menu. So we'll do a UL, and I want that to display inline. And then we'll have the LI. Okay, LI, we're going to say float left. Padding right will be 10 pixels. And let's make sure we set list style to none. Alright, and then lastly we have the links, which will be white. Alright, let's take a look. And we just want to push this down a little bit. Okay, that didn't work. Let's do it on F right. Actually, we'll do margin top 10. Yeah, a little more. Alright, there we go. So that looks pretty good. It's a very simple design. I didn't want to go all out because the main point of this is to get you familiar with the syntax to create a WordPress theme, not so much creating a great design. Okay, so now that we're done with the HTML and CSS, we can move on, and in the next video we'll start to create our WordPress theme.